Hi everyone, this is Braxton from the Writing Center, and today we're going to go over commas and when to use them. So commas have a lot of jobs in English, which is why they can be so confusing and why there's so many rules surrounding them. But today we're going to go over just 5 basic rules to help you use commas correctly, and this will hopefully help you with most of your comma issues. It won't cover 100% of them, but it will cover about 98%. So the first rule on when to use commas is when combining clauses. So a clause is a chunk of a sentence that contains a verb. An independent clause is a clause that can be a sentence by itself. And a dependent clause is a clause that cannot be a sentence by itself. So here are some common sentence structures that we use in English. And with these, you'll kind of see how those clauses work together. So our first pattern is dependent clause plus comma plus independent clause. Our sentence is, because I felt sick, I did not go to class. So because I felt sick is a dependent clause, and then I did not go to class is an independent clause. So if we look at these more carefully, because I felt sick, that cannot be a sentence by itself. That wouldn't make sense, it's not a complete thought. However, I did not go to class can be a complete sentence by itself. We can just have that and it makes sense all by itself on its own. So together we have one complete sentence with a dependent clause and an independent clause and a comma separating the two. Our next pattern is an independent clause plus a coordinating conjunction plus a dependent clause. So in this situation we have, I went to the store and purchased a new computer. I went to the store is an independent clause. It could be a sentence by itself. Then and is our coordinating conjunction. Now if you're not familiar with coordinating conjunctions, you can just Google them. You'll be able to find a list very easily. But a helpful acronym to remember all of our conjunctions are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And that spells fanboys. So for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And what conjunctions do is they combine clauses together for us. So that is their main job. And as you can see here, our coordinating conjunction is and. So then after we have that conjunction, we have a dependent clause, which is purchased a new computer. So our entire sentence is I went to the store and purchased a new computer. We have an independent clause followed by a coordinating conjunction and then a dependent clause at the end. Another common pattern that we use in English is an independent clause plus a comma plus a coordinating conjunction and then plus an independent clause. So for example, we have I went to the store and I purchased a new computer. I went to the store is a complete sentence by itself, so it's an independent clause. Then we have our comma there followed by our coordinating conjunction and then we have another independent clause which is I purchased a new computer. So, as you can see here, when you are combining two independent clauses or two complete sentences with a conjunction, you need to make sure that you have your comma there as well. So, two independent clauses need a comma and a coordinating conjunction. If one of those is not an independent clause, if you have a dependent and an independent, you most likely will just need either a conjunction or either a comma, not both of them. So after combining clauses, we have setting off non-essential elements. So non-essential words and phrases should be separated from the main body of a sentence using commas. Here are some examples of that. The boy, running as fast as he ever had before, gasped and panted. So running as fast as he ever had before is considered a non-essential element because we could pull it out of the sentence and the sentence would still make sense. We could just say the boy gasped and panted. That's a complete sentence by itself. It doesn't need the non-essential element. However, the non-essential element does add extra context, so if we want to keep that in there, we need commas before and after. Here's another example. Charles, my friend with the arm tattoo, is great at baseball. Again, my friend with the arm tattoo is unnecessary. The sentence could exist without that chunk, so we need commas on both sides of it. The dog, tired and hungry, lied down and whimpered. Tired and hungry is our non-essential element here. Then the girls, whether they liked it or not, decided it was time to go home. In this sentence, we have whether they liked it or not as our non-essential element. And again, we could write the sentence without that information. And because we could, and the sentence would still make sense, we need commas before and after. So with non-essential elements, transitional words or phrases, such as however, though, consequently, etc., are generally considered non-essential, and they should be set off by commas as well. So if you have a sentence like, I, however, was not hungry. In that situation, however, would be additional information, so it needs a comma before and after. Now your third rule is separating items in a list. So lists that contain 3 or more items should be punctuated with a comma between each item. Here are some examples of that. I enjoy hiking, biking, and running. Our list is hiking, biking, and running. The car crashed into the light post, skidded to a stop, and released a burst of smoke. There's our list. So crashed into the light post, skidded to a stop, and released a burst of smoke is the list, and as you can see, there are commas between each of the items. Please stop at the store and buy milk, cheese, and bread on your way home. Milk, cheese, and bread is the list there. And then lastly, we have during the summer, she watched movies, read books, and played video games. Watched movies, read books, and played video games is the list. So in each of these examples, because there's more than 3 items, or there's 3 items, you need commas between all of them. If there were only 2 items, you would only use and. So for example, in the first sentence, if it said, I enjoy hiking and biking, since there are 2 items, you don't need a comma, you just need that and. However, because there are 3 items, you need the commas between each item. Going along with this, the comma preceding the conjunction and the final item in the list is referred to as the Oxford comma and is considered optional. So what I mean by that is if we go back to our examples and we look at hiking, biking, and running. Running is the last item in the list and the conjunction is and. So the comma right after biking is technically considered optional. However, if we go back to that same slide, it says that comma should always be used if its omission would result in confusion. So if your sentence would be confusing without that comma, make sure to put it in. Also, although the Oxford comma is technically optional, most people suggest using it. So when in doubt, just throw that last comma in there. Now we're on to our 4th rule. So the 4th rule is separating interchangeable adjectives. Comma should also be used to separate adjectives when the order of the adjectives is interchangeable. If the order is not interchangeable, no comma should be used. To test whether or not 2 adjectives are truly interchangeable, try reading the sentence with the word and between them. If the sentence still makes sense, then the adjectives are interchangeable and should be separated by a comma. So we're going to look at some examples of this and hopefully it will clarify it a little bit. He is a strong, healthy individual. Strong and healthy are both adjectives that modify the word individual. So because we have 2 adjectives, and in this case they are interchangeable, we need a comma between the 2. Now again, the way we test to see if they're interchangeable is we try putting the word and between those. So he is a strong and healthy individual. Because that makes sense, we know that they're interchangeable. Here's our next example. Shannon loves wearing pink cashmere sweaters in the winter. Pink and cashmere are both adjectives that modify sweaters. However, in this situation, they are not interchangeable because we can't put an and between them. It wouldn't make sense to say Shannon loves wearing pink and cashmere sweaters in the winter. So in this situation, we know that there should not be a comma. The dark, gloomy night kept the children from going outside to play. So this one, dark and gloomy, modify night, and because we could put that and between them, we know it needs a comma. The dancer was wearing pink, lacy dancing shoes. This one's kind of tricky because there are 3 adjectives, pink, lacy, and dancing. Now, pink and lacy are interchangeable, but dancing is not. So we could say the pink and lacy dancing shoes, but we wouldn't be able to say the pink and lacy and dancing shoes. That wouldn't make sense. So because of that, we only need a comma after pink. We don't need another one after lacy because dancing is not interchangeable. Now your last rule is introducing quotations. So comma should also be used to introduce quoted material. Here are some examples of that. Susan Smith, the nation's leading neuroscientist, writes, "Our brain is our most complex organ." So there's a couple things going on in this sentence. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice that there's some non-essential information in that sentence that is offset with commas. That is the section that says the nation's leading neuroscientist. So because that is non-essential, we need a comma before and a comma after. However, the rule we're talking about here is introducing quotations, which we need another comma as well right after writes, because that is the last word before the quote starts. So we have writes, comma, our brain is our most complex organ. Here's another example. Our brain is our most complex organ, writes Susan Smith, the nation's leading neuroscientist. So in this sentence, we've put the attribution or the explanation of who said it after the quote. So we need a comma where the quote ends, but still inside of the quotation marks. So you can see that right after organ. So our brain is our most complex organ, comma, quotation marks, writes Susan Smith. Now our last example, we've put the attribution in the middle. So our brain, writes Susan Smith, the nation's leading neuroscientist, is our most complex organ. So here there are two places where we need a comma. We need a comma after brain because that's where the quote ends and the attribution begins. And then we need a comma after neuroscientist because that's going to lead us into the second half of the quote. So those are our 5 basic tips for you guys. If you need extra help, make sure to check out the handout for this tutorial or make an appointment to meet with a tutor. You can always come into the Writing Center and ask for a little bit extra help. But again, thank you so much for watching, and we hope that you'll watch out a few of our other tutorials and get a little bit extra help. And like I said, if you need anything beyond that, make sure to visit the Writing Center and talk with a tutor in person.